and today I wanted to share with you my journey through psoriasis and subsequently re-journey. You may have noticed the title of this article. 10 years ago, I had psoriasis and now it's back. Not the easiest news to receive. I got out of the shower the other day and found a fairly significant patch on my stomach. And don't get me wrong, within that 10-year period, I've seen little bits here and there under an eyebrow, on an elbow, but nothing like this. And so I knew at that moment my body was telling me to step it back up. So this time, about 10 years ago, I was 16, 17 years old. It was around 2003, and I was covered in psoriasis. Pretty devastating for anybody, especially for a teenager, I think. And I had been doing all of the conventional stuff to try and get rid of it, including seeing a dermatologist, visiting him with 3-4 minutes after waiting a year for his appointment and being pushed out the door with a prescription for a topical cream. The one that I had been using was steroid based and eventually would start to thin my skin. Luckily, I caught it before any real damage happened. But I just got desperate because there wasn't any way to just get rid of it altogether. I could go in the sun for a little while. I used tanning beds once or twice, but I'm so fair and also so dead set against tanning beds that I couldn't make that a habit. And, the sun just really wasn't around very much where I'm from. So I started looking on the internet with my mom, and, at that time there was much less buzz around natural medicine. In fact, nutrition, we didn't even really, we weren't educated as much then as we are now. And so what we came up with was a website that was offering a elimination diet, a meal replacement whole foods powder, and a system to sort of introduce you to the reasons why autoimmune conditions and skin disorders appear, and then a way to use your diet to eliminate them. And I went on a water fast, for quite some time. Before that, I had eased into it with their Whole Foods meal replacement powder for a few days. So meal replacement, water fast, and then moving into an elimination diet where I was allowed to eat 25 things. So no salt or pepper, condiments, no refined products, no sugar, no wheat. The 25 things that were the least allergenic to the highest population of people. And it was bland. It was really tricky, knowing what to bring for lunch or knowing how to cook at all. I mean, I didn't really know how to cook that well as a teenager, and there was no cookbook for this diet, and so it's basically how I learned to interact with food. The first thing I introduced after a few months of being on the diet was onions, and my mom stir-fried them in a wok with a teeny bit of olive oil, carrots, and onions. And I remember putting the first bite in my mouth and being absolutely blown away. I had never experienced food in this way, much less understood that vegetables had so much flavor on their own without salt. It was like I was completely transformed, at least in my palate. While it got worse before it got better with this elimination diet, I eventually saw almost complete cure, we'll say, of my symptoms. And I I was elated. You know, it was like having a body, a new body, or at least my old one back. So many people kind of would tell me it wasn't that bad because it was just your skin, you know, but it's easy to observe and make judgments when you haven't actually been there yourself. Wanting to diversify my diet, but still wanting to be cautious, I sought out more therapeutic diet help, and I went to see a nurse who practices a homeopath in her basement. Again, it was very alternative for the time, and she did prescribe me a homeopathic remedy for adrenal fatigue, but the biggest thing was the diet that she gave me and customized in her own way for my situation. It was from the Eat Right for Your Blood Type book, which has since then been debunked, I believe. I especially appreciate Joel Fuhrman's argument in his book Eat to Live against this, and the scientific basis why it may not be true. But the crux of it was sort of the crux of the inflammation diet. In Ayurveda, it's a diet that aggravates pitta, and a lot of times this heat, this fire can cause skin issues. And that's not just psoriasis, that's acne as well. And there are a lot of parallels. So at the center of this blood type diet that I have been prescribed, and also a diet for anti-inflammation, was the elimination of nightshade vegetables. So peppers, tomatoes, potatoes, and eggplant. Along with that, you'll see all the hallmarks of a clean whole foods diet, including elimination of all refined products, preservatives, and additives. So white flours, white sugars, certain types of canned goods, particularly wheat. So many people are sensitive to wheat just because of its proliferation in our diet contemporarily. So by using this diet, I had a little bit more freedom in what I was allowed. I could start exploring more recipe books because I had to make everything up myself before. And using it as a guideline, it kind of became my diet for years. You know, I transitioned into more pure plant-based diet, only vegan foods, eliminating eggs. But then I eventually, you know, I would start slipping because of social engagements or what have you. I mean, I spent almost 7-8 years doing vegan. But especially in the last 6 months, I have been slipping up a little bit. And this is nobody's fault. It's just through the passage of time and life. And I'm fully happy to experience all of it. And I've been eating more wheat, more sugary items, you know, being less cognizant of what I put into my body. Moderation was never a problem for me. I could always have a little bit of something here and there, but it's become the prevalence of certain things, certain allergens like wheat and tomatoes for me that have caused this little relapse, I guess you could say. I recently have found symptoms of psoriasis on my skin after almost a decade without it. And while I was first diagnosed with psoriasis at age 4, I never had anything sort of more than on my scalp. And then when I was 16, 17 years old, after getting strep throat, it was like it triggered entire body coverage of psoriasis plaques. And, you know, back then it was a difficult thing to clear, and I was using lots of pharmaceutical creams with steroids in them. I was having to put medicated oils on my scalp and soak it just to get the crust to go away. I remember all of my embarrassing moments involving my skin and how it made me feel. I also remember being liberated from my body image because I became so unattached from it in a positive way. It's been a journey, and experiencing it again in my later 20s, it's like, crap. But also, yay, blessing. And I kind of probably sound facetious saying that, but I'm really not. Having to deal with any kind of suffering is really crappy, and it sucks, but there's so much we can learn from it, and there is so much that we can learn about ourselves when we reach these darker places. And seeing this little spot on my body was just like, brought up all kinds of body image stuff, but it made me realize how far I'd come since I had my first outbreak of it, and what kind of person I am now, and the spaciousness that I feel, and how that's going to impact how I treat it, and that because I've done this before, I can do it again, no problem. It's a clean whole foods diet, plant-based diet that can release you from those symptoms. And so I don't like to go hard and fast into something. That was a way of life for me at one time that I have done a lot of meditation around for many years, and moved into a more spacious type of living. And so instead of deciding on a cleanse or fast, I'll create some sort of regimen for myself eventually, but I'm not ready yet. And so instead, I'm just slowly integrating different healing practices and different ingredients into my diet that are going to contribute to this cleansing effort. So, for instance, I have been religiously soaking all of my legumes, nuts, seeds, and what am I missing? Grains. It's something I had peripheral knowledge about, but it's really been drilled home the past few months in my world. And so, at any given moment in my kitchen, you're going to see a counter lined with glass jars. It's actually really beautiful. It looks like an apothecary. And, one jar is filled with a tablespoon of kefir culture, quinoa, and tons of water. Another one has a gigantic jar full of sprouting chickpeas, or sesame seeds soaking to be dehydrated the next day. And it's practices like these that are really healing, because for those of us that are experiencing weaknesses in our constitution, no matter what kind of illness that might be, we can use all the help we get. And soaking, fermenting, and germinating or sprouting your grains, nuts, seeds, and legumes releases the vitamins and minerals inside of them that are locked up until the seed has germinated. And I won't go into scientific details, but suffice to say there have been scientific studies that are proving that ancient practices like Ayurveda that have told us to do this, they're right. There's significantly less concentration of anti-nutrient factors in grains, legumes, nuts, and seeds when they've been soaked for 18 to 24 hours. So that is a big thing for everyone to get into, and I suggest you do a little bit of research and learn a little bit more about it, and starting to incorporate it into your schedule. Right now you can do it, take a couple cups of dried chickpeas, throw them in a nice glass container, something that's kind of attractive and will make it a lot easier for you to remember and to see it. And, you know, cover the chickpeas with about 2 inches of water and see if you can find a bottle of probiotics or kefir culture and put a tablespoon of that in with your soaking water. And that is going to go a long way in bringing out the mineral content in your chickpeas. It's been really nice to connect with you again and to hear all the little voices that are within this beautiful community, and to know there are folks that are enjoying what this content that I'm offering. So thank you so much, and I look forward to hanging out with you.